With Invincible being in the spotlight lately due to the recent conclusion of the Amazon series, the show's gotten the attention of someone who can't help but want to crush the hero hype for good, Garou. However, while manga Garou would certainly prove too much for the heroes of Invincible's Earth, Hero Hunter Garou has a far more interesting time on his hands if we let him run wild with only the general capability of what we know from him in the anime and manga before the upcoming One Punch Man Season 3 in October and beyond. So for this tier list, where we'll be ranking how Garou does against the heroes of Invincible on a hero hunt, we'll be using Hero Hunter Garou, who has the potential to build up to half monsterization at most. And as for the Invincible verse, we'll be using the Amazon Prime series as of season 3, since that's what I've been enjoying lately and I'm familiar with. So comics are not taken into account as I haven't read them. Convinced in his beliefs against Hero Society, Garou's a human who's out to make a name for himself as a monster of the world and has chosen defeating as many heroes as possible to be his way to do so, and he's only 18 years old. Yeah, I was surprised when I first learned that too. As many of you know, Garou is a master martial artist with both an extremely fierce level of talent and power, who also has the potential to grow and adapt mid-fight against the response of strong resistance. Possessing an abundance of skill in the water stream rock smashing fist, the art taught to him by Silverfang, Garou's a specialist in redirecting attacks stronger than his own, right back at his attackers with twice the power, and can even nullify strikes up to a certain point entirely. Through his own strength and the skill of his fighting ability, Garou should be capable of attack potency more than capable of harming Viltrumites when referring to what has hurt and damaged them within the series, and definitely more if given the right opportunities to adapt and evolve within a fight. Also capable of fighting at the speed of light as scaled by his season 2 scrap against post-super fight Genos, who had defeated G4 and Cockroach Man, not to mention this is while Garou was poisoned, fatigued and injured. It's clear that the world of Invincible would have the world's most problematic teenager on their hands. So before we get to those hands throwing, let's quickly explain the tier list and clarifications. Before I say the tiering, we're going with in-character Garou as of season 2 when it comes to his battle approach and win condition. Garou doesn't kill heroes, he just seeks to beat them after finding out information on them to give him ideas on how to approach the fight. His win condition is roughing up a hero well enough to where they're not worth fighting anymore in his opinion, or knocking them out cold. Unless provoked, he doesn't like fighting women or children either. All of these points will play a part in some rankings. Also, we'll say word of his hero hunting has spread among the cities, and that it's also known he hasn't killed anybody throughout his ongoing hunt like in season 2 of One Punch Man. So heroes of Invincible won't automatically be bloodlusted towards him and will likely approach with that knowledge in mind rather than desperately trying to kill him at all costs, as if he were an invading Viltrumite or something. Okay, tiering. Starting off with Prey. These heroes are light work for Garou, and he'll either toy with them or lay them out in short time. Amusing are for the heroes who don't have any real chance of beating him, but can provide some fun with their overall effort or some kind of awkward resistance. Challenging is for those who may land a few smacks on Garou, although Garou would mostly dominate or be in full control until he starts turning the gears. Dangerous is for those who would pose a solid threat to Garou. They can make it close, make it bloody, maybe force him to adapt and overcome, leaving him thinking he needs to take the rest of the day off after he's done with that encounter. And finally, Apprehended. Garou flew a little too close to the sun and he wasn't able to adapt within time before taking too much damage or put them down quick enough before he got caught out. And Garou's violent spree has been placed on hold thanks to his defeat. Alright, so with that out of the way, time to hero hunt. Original Darkwing is up first, and it's going to look a little something like Omni-Man versus Darkwing minus the public funeral. Darkwing, as a human and one without an explosive enough arsenal, doesn't have anything better to bother Garou with, and anything he can do, the hero hunter can do better. It's a good thing Darkwing doesn't talk much because he'll have trouble talking after. Prey for Garou. Like father, not quite like son though. Darkwing II is something of a different problem. He's stronger and faster than Daddy Darkwing, but not enough to give any issue to Garou. However, getting trapped in the Shadowverse will not be a fun experience. Since Garou usually finds information on his opponents before battling them, it's unlikely Darkwing II will be able to surprise him with the Shadowverse or find a way to take him into it, with Garou being too fast and too strong to be physically bullied toward anywhere he doesn't want to by someone of Darkwing II's level. So he'll be on Amusing for the hero hunter. Martian Man is up next, and just like his planet, he's seeing red. Garou's overwhelming power would be too much for the Martian, and he'd be taken out in similar fashion to how Omni-Man did the job, but his stretchiness and versatility would make it interesting enough for Garou, so he goes in Amusing. Shapesmith takes on a similar fate. However, I think Shapesmith has less about him as a combatant and hasn't given great accounts of his efforts recently, which leads me to believe Garou would dominate him after whatever initial quirkiness the newer Martian tries, putting him down in prey. Green Ghost could be tricky with how elusive she would be thanks to her powers, but sooner or later Garou would figure out a trick to lay hands on her if she tried to attack him, be it to fake her out by threatening a civilian or nearby hero to make her break her intangibility, or by anticipating her movements to catch her the next time she becomes tangible. Offensively, she wouldn't amount to much, but defensively, it earns her enough points to be amusing. War Woman swings her way into the list next, and given she's got some hand-to-hand skills and a swing which knocked some of the IQ out of Omni-Man's head, I'm going to throw her in challenging. She's not fast enough to ever have a shot of taking Garou out, however she might land a few clean ones if Garou's playing around too much after not expecting a woman to hit him so damn hard. Aquarus is fish food who goes into the prey category, and Garou might even laugh at him and say he's a monster who's playing hero due to his appearance. Dupli-Kate is prey times 100. She could follow him around all day multiplying, and he'd put them all down with minimal effort, and once he's bored of the novelty, he'll put the lights out of the last one to end the warm-up. Next we've got Immortal. Some say his name represents that he can live forever, and others say his name represents how long he'll need to live to catch a significant W in the series. Like War Woman, he's got some stuff about him and you know, he knows a thing or two. However, it'd only ever be a level which Garou will overcome without having to dial into his later gears. Too fast, too strong, and too skilled for Immortal, which puts him in challenging. Robot won't get very far before he's dismantled in a chance encounter. However, once Garou realizes there's a kid inside of the suit, he'd cool things off, so I'll put him in prey. But given prep time, there's a chance he'd make something to hinder Garou more. Monster Girl would all depend on what he sees first, the girl or the monster. Granting the idea he fights the monster first, he might unknowingly go a little harder than he needs, and I'd place the fight somewhere around challenging. I think she could do damage to him, but the difference in speed and skill would stop her from reaching the dangerous tier. However, at whichever stage he realizes she's what he perceives to be a child, he'll settle it one way or another without doing more harm than he requires, or just leaving her to it while she probably cusses him out while he leaves. Black Samson has never really shown anything too grand out on the field, so I'd say he's under the level of War Woman and Immortal, putting him around the amusing tier. Shrinking Ray would be an interesting one to him since he'd probably never imagine someone could go as small as she does, yet with his reflexes and perception, she wouldn't amount to anything more than prey for the hero hunter. Oliver's up next, and he's obviously a strong little whippet, and while Garou would probably try to walk away from him or try to just chat and even tease him instead of start a fight, if Oliver gets into one of those excitable little moods where he just won't let something go and makes a beeline for Garou, then after taking one hit, Garou will probably switch up enough to minimize the risks. Oliver, while powerful, is way too inexperienced in both fight IQ and martial arts to get enough cracks in to deal with someone like Garou, so it's unlikely he'll land anything of note past his defense, and with all of that bad technique on display, Garou will likely redirect one of those Superboy punches right back at Oliver to teach him a little lesson on respecting your elders and why heroes don't always save the day. This fight likely won't properly conclude since Garou ideally wouldn't want to fight a kid, but the upper hand to him would be obvious. Challenging tier for Oliver, especially since Debbie and Mark made it clear to him that he shouldn't be killing humans. Next, we've got the main character himself and star of the show. Of course, it's Invincible, and he'll do a lot better than his little brother. Mark can hit very hard, and as of late has come into his powers far more than what we saw from season 1. However, we've still seen Mark struggle with hits that are beneath what Garou can put out, and Mark's not exactly an expert fighter when compared to Silverfang's greatest student. Yes, all those Viltrumite punches will be redirected right back at Mark. He's stronger than Garou, but not as quick in an exchanging of hands and feet, and flying speed won't be something that can help him here. Garou's going to take some big hits of his own, but Mark's usual tendency to hold back is only going to help Garou build through the fight. If he's not able to get Mark out of there to begin with, he'll grow throughout the contest since Mark won't be looking to kill him, meaning every shot he takes is just going to give him more and more chances to figure Mark out and rise to new levels of progression mid-fight. Some will say that Garou won't be able to hit hard enough to put Invincible down long enough for a win, and I'd agree to an extent. Garou won't have any single attack to turn Mark's switch off for a knockout. However, with Garou's vast superiority in combat and ability to fight at astounding speeds, he will not only be getting one chance to hit Mark, that's right, he's going to be hitting him a lot. And as they say in banking, investment matters. It will be a tough fight, but by the time Mark wises up and realizes he needs to go all out, Garou's likely to have already stunned Mark long enough enough to leave him half conscious with those bruised marks we've seen him left with far too many times. Garou will hit a lot harder than Cecil's new robots, and those were able to lose bruising impacts on Mark when given the chance. He'd get a ton more from Garou, with pressure point strikes included. Still, rough scrap for both, but Garou eventually whittles him down with superior skill, more consistent and quicker combat speed, and an onslaught of combinations and attack redirections where Mark feels how strong his own punches are. Dangerous tier for Invincible. And for those who say Mark would try to kill Garou in reference to his words at the end of season 3 of Invincible, he would not. He'd know that Garou would not have killed any heroes during his hero hunt from Cecil's intel, and also gather that Garou has no interest in civilian casualties either, as that's not hero hunter Garou's approach, proven by his antics to this point. This alone would make Mark believe he wasn't dealing with a killer, not to mention the fact that he's human, so he'd have a far less chance of showing up with an intention of his own to kill. Having fun so far? Hit the subscribe button for me so I don't turn into a non-subscriber hunter. Splode is up next, and after saying to Garou something like, "You know what, your haircut really sucks. I'd be hunting your hairstylist if I were you," well, it'd leave Rex in the amusing category. Arguably, he'd go in prey, but I think Rex would be a glutton for punishment and get pummeled, so I'll bump him up for his sacrifice. Bulletproof would essentially be like a lower grade Mark, so he'd soon find out that he's not punch proof after tearing in the challenging grade. Red Rush would probably irritate Garou for a while, but he'd figure him out sooner or later if Red Rush keeps pushing his luck. With Garou's fighting intellect, reflexes and skill level, he'd find a way to catch Red Rush, and when he does, he'll hit him hard enough to put him down in one go, but of course, catching him may be an issue, so for that, he goes in challenging 2. Atom Eve is up next, and I know all of you will be eager to hear this one after what she did to Conquest, but she ends up in amusing for me. Hear me out. I think what she did to Conquest was awesome, and she's no doubt a force to be reckoned with in that state. However, she requires herself to be on death's door to activate that state of hers. And with Garou's approach to hero hunting, once she attacks him with her pink offense, he'll bust through and evade it until a few stiff shots will put her in dreamland. That's right, Garou is not going to try and kill her or open her face with a punch like he just put his hand through a cake the way Conquest did. Eve's body won't be pushed to enter that powerful state because Garou wouldn't attempt a murder or sadistically tear into her with his attacks. She's taken multiple L's in the show without that activating, and she'd take another one here against the martial arts master. So with Glass Cannon Eve knocked out in a few hits, as we've seen her do very badly durability wise against types like Invincible, she gets to have a nice nap without needing to rearrange her atoms. And finally, Omni-Man. I'm at a bit of a crossroads with this one. Shout out Cody Rhodes. I want to say, for the sake of giving Amazon's Invincible a W, that Omni-Man would beat Hero Hunter Garou because of all of the strong feats shown from the show. However, at the same time, I'm having trouble bringing myself to do it from all of the weaker and inconsistent showings of Nolan throughout the series too. If the Nolan who fought the Guardians showed up, he'd get his shit flipped by Garou. Yet at the same time, I've seen Nolan tank a satellite laser and beat Mark to a pulp. Then I remember the openings he's given Cecil's robots and the Immortal L-Taker of all people, and what a fighter of Garou's level would do with those openings. Openings which he would very well have due to being a far superior martial artist than Nolan, and a much more consistently faster fighter in hand-to-hand, judging by the eye test and stable performances. The advantages Nolan has are flight and strength. Durability too, if it's not the Guardians of the Globe smacking him apparently. But everything else goes to Garou, and Garou can still evolve throughout the fight if Prime Nolan isn't showing up on the day to finish the fight quick enough. Omni-Man is going to have an incredibly tough time landing hits on a very evasive Garou who is not only vastly more skilled than him, but faster than him in combat too. Remember, flight speed is not combat speed, especially on Earth, and many of those attempted hits will be turned back on Omni-Man courtesy of Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, which could be huge in Garou's favor to turn Viltrum-born power right back in Nolan's face. Literally. Nolan's path to victory is hitting Garou incredibly hard and a lot in a short space of time to offset any growth potential and stop him in his tracks before he has a chance to evolve. The question is, can he do that before Garou's lesser attacks eventually start to pile up and wear Nolan down into exhaustion or excess damage? You could say that Nolan will grab him and fly him up to space, to which I say, you really believe Garou is gonna stand there and let him do that? Garou's understanding of martial arts is on another plane of existence compared to the Amazon Invincible verse. Ear claps, pressure point strikes, grappling transitions, joint breaks. Garou will likely be out of Nolan's hold before he can take an unauthorized visit to the constellations, and every sloppy grab attempt from Nolan will be a free pass for Garou to wail damage on him, which will stop Nolan from trying. This is generously assuming, by the way, that Nolan is quick enough to securely grab him in the first place. Here's what I'll do. I'm changing apprehended to 50-50 because I feel in my bones that Hero Hunter Garou can grind out a win against Amazon's Nolan if he's vulnerable to the types of things we've seen damage, weaken, and downright drop him. Garou will have to hustle since he doesn't have any singular attacks to end the fight. However, if you poke enough holes in a ship, it'll sink, and Garou's good enough to do a lot of poking, especially since his combat speed is leagues faster than Nolan's combat speed, and the skill gap is monstrous. No pun intended. If Nolan could go hand to hand at the speed Garou does, I'd give it to him outright. But since Amazon's Omni-Man definitely does not, that is a huge factor for me in believing Garou could outwork him to a TKO and even evolve through the fight to a half monsterized version of himself if absolutely needed. Remember, this wouldn't be some idiot with no skills like Red Rush putting a speed blitzing on Nolan in a fight. This is a deadly martial artist with heavy hands, sharp counters, and a genius fighting mind who grows stronger against powerful opponents mid-battle. However, if Prime Nolan shows up and drops the inconsistencies and poorer showings, and proceeds to go as hard and fast as he can from the get-go, perhaps this may very well be too much for the 18-year-old Garou to overcome so early in his hero hunting journey. You guys and girls in the comments are gonna have to weigh in on this last one, since I feel all the others, given the material this video is based on, are no-brainers. Either way, this concludes Garou's hero hunt in Amazon's Invincible. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want to beat me to death for my statements, or stroke underneath my chin and call me a good boy? Like and subscribe for more content if you're a fan of One Punch Man to support the channel, because for some reason I think the Invincible fans won't be. Thanks for watching.